Yesterday, during a roundtable discussion on concussions, Jeff Miller, the NFL's Senior Vice President for Health and Safety, acknowledged a link between football-related head trauma and the brain disease CTE. This is the first time a senior official has publicly acknowledged this link. So, Nick, yesterday, like I said, they had this roundtable discussion in which there was more than a dozen concussion experts, including the folks from the federal government, the military, and several in the scientific community. Several people were actually affiliated with the NFL. But so Jeff Miller is the Senior Vice President for Health and Safety, and he was questioned by Representative Jan Schakowsky. And she basically just asked him if there is a link between football and, head trauma related to that and the degenerative disease CTE, which stands for chronic traumatic encephalopathy. It's just a degenerative neurological disease. And he, in response to that, said the answer to that question is certainly yes. The interesting thing about this is the fact that this is the first time that an upper-up within the NFL has publicly acknowledged that link.
Because, for the people that are high up who aren't actually playing the sport, this goes against many of their interest. I mean, for example, they're making a lot of money off of these people, and so the fact that it's just so sad that to see that this is the first time that they've come out publicly and said something like this. It's like you'd think this would be an issue that they would work very hard to address in the beginning and make sure that the public knows that. All those young children, all the parents that are enrolling their children in football at a young age, I feel like they should know those things. You shouldn't kind of know these things and then keep it to yourself so that you can lose money.
Right.
That's just terrible.
Exactly. Well, and a lot of research still needs to be done, which I think is the point of this discussion. The statement that he made in relation to there being a link was based on the work from Dr. Ann McKee, who's a neuropathologist, and she had diagnosed CTE in 90 of 94 former NFL players, and it's a disease that can only be diagnosed after death. So this is something that they're still sort of in the infancy of understanding the links and then understanding, I guess, where to go from there. That was the later part of the discussion is, okay, we might be able to acknowledge this link, but what are we going to do about it? One thing I found interesting, though, too, is Schakowsky did acknowledge the fact that the NFL up until this point has been pretty hush-hush about it. Like Roger Goodell has not had much to say about it. And as a matter of fact, leading up to the Super Bowl, 3 days before, Dr. Mitch Berger, who is a neurosurgeon and leads the NFL subcommittee on long-term brain injury, still claimed that there was no direct link between the two. So right now, we're just in a place of being like, okay, let's just put all the information out on the table, which is what that roundtable discussion was about yesterday.
Right, and as far as what you can do about it, my first thought was kind of well, we need to maybe change the helmets, right? We need better helmets with better padding. But when you look at a disease like CTE, for example, it's not necessarily about how well padded your helmet is, right? It's not about the impact on the outside of your head specifically. It's about the way that you're changing direction, and it's your brain hitting the inside of your skull. So there's really no way to stop these kinds of injuries unless you change the rules of football, and those rules that we know of football are the reason why everyone loves football. So it makes you really think, what's the future of football going to look like? Are less and less parents going to enroll their children knowing these facts? If they're out there on the table in the future, are they going to be less inclined to enroll their children in these football leagues at a young age in fear that they might end up, sustaining some serious brain injuries? That's scary.
And this type of disease is also prevalent within boxing. Any kind of UFC fighting, anything where you're just repeatedly getting hit over and over again. And again, it's just about being upfront about that. So yeah, people can make their choices. If people know that there is a link, it doesn't mean that they're going to stop playing football necessarily, but they'll at least be more informed. So Schakowsky had this to say with regards to the NFL's previous kind of hushedness. She said, quote, "The NFL is peddling a false sense of security. Football is a high-risk sport because of the routine hits, not just diagnosable concussions. What the American public needs now is honesty about the health risks and clearly more research." So that's basically what I'm talking about. And then after the discussion was over, when Jeff Miller was pressed about Mitch Berger's comments, he kind of backpedaled. It sort of seemed like a bit of a PR mistake. So from there, he's kind of like, oh, let the NFL speak for itself. So I think he kind of opened the door for something that might be bad for them down the line.
Yeah, without a doubt. And that's in itself, again, to go back to the first thing I said, that is so sad that they're willing to withhold this kind of information to save their own asses financially speaking, right? Because it's not their heads that are being smashed over there. It's the people that they're employing. So.
So ultimately, people playing football are going to make their own choices with regards to the risks involved. People are going to probably still watch football, but at the very least, being open about the links between football and CTE, to me, is a no-brainer.